Welcome back to EDUSPLORER. I want to thank you for joining. If you feel that the country of South Africa has demonstrated maturity with regards to its relationship with the United States of America, smash the like button. In this episode, I want to just have a quick conversation with regards to the current diplomatic row between the United States of America and the country of South Africa. South Africa is a major economy in the continent of Africa. Irrespective of what you think about the country, it is important, it's of the essence. That's why we created this channel, to talk about how Africa engage its geopolitical partners. The United States of America has singled out South Africa to an extent. What we see in the media with regards to what the current United States of America Secretary of State, Mr. Rubio, is talking about expelling the country of South Africa's ambassador, it's not new. It's not something we're going to be talking about. These are challenging times in the continent of Africa's history, and South Africa is facing it for the continent. Why am I saying this? South Africa has been the mature partner regards to this relationship. The United States of America's approach and behavior towards South Africa has been that of condescending, paternalistic, and underlooking and downplaying. It is important to note that the European Union, China, Russia, Middle Eastern partner must be laughing the United States at the moment, expelling an ambassador. Is that all you can do at this stage? Africa, wake up. It's important to know that events like this gives you a bigger picture of what is to come. This channel we created is to talk about Africa's engagement with the strategic partners. These are challenging times. If you feel that South Africa has shown leadership again, South Africa has shown maturity, if South Africa has demonstrated calm, if South Africa has maintained its calm, smash the like button, because the behavior from the United States of America expelling the South African ambassador is a wake-up call for African diplomatic community in the United States. That is an indication that you cannot open your mouth and make any comment. I mean, whatever the comment is, even if you have to talk about something which is against your own particular existence or against your own particular beliefs, and more importantly, we have seen across the continent of Africa how United States of American ambassadors have come out clear to talk about issues of internal concern, which to an extent, good move, no doubt, but did that call for those ambassadors to be expelled, to be removed from the continent of Africa or those different African countries? I think this particular decision from the United States is the lowest level that the United States can go. I think South Africa, by just staying calm, have shown maturity, have shown exemplary diplomatic engagement, have shown an example of an African country that understands global diplomacy. Europe must be laughing at the United States at the moment. Asian partners, China, and all of this plays into the hands of China. And China again will come very clear and said, I told you, the United States to an extent want to bully the big brother of the continent of Africa. Irrespective of what you think about South Africa, it's a major country in the continent of Africa. If South Africa can be pushed back and forth, what about Malawi? What about Gabon? What about those small countries in Africa? Does it mean that African ambassadors and diplomats cannot speak out and say what they believe or what they don't believe in? These are challenging times in the continent of African history. That's why we created this channel, to talk on how African governments and the particular strategic partnership is being managed in the continent and around the world. So this decision by the United States of America to expel an African ambassador, in this case in South Africa, is nothing to write about. There's just no particular significance. Nothing is going to change. South Africa has shown that it is a mature partner in this relationship. Smash the like button as we get into discussions with regards to this particular topic. It is important to know that the continent of Africa should observe this. The next 4 years will be the most challenging time that the continent have ever faced. Why are we talking about this? This is important because South Africa, despite being singled out in regards to the current behavior from the United States of America, expelling an ambassador, is that something new? It's not new at all. We've seen ambassadors being withdrawn from countries from around the world. So expelling a South African ambassador has nothing to do. What I see here, considering how the geopolitical landscape has shifted, it goes beyond just expelling ambassador. The United States of America, to an extent, causing problems alongside its geopolitical partners in Europe, Canada, Mexico, looking at France, and more importantly, China. And you think that South Africa is different? South Africa is a big voice in the global south, and other African countries are observing this behavior very closely. And South Africa, I think, is not going to waver. When I talk about maturity here, South Africa has been the most mature partner in this relationship. Well, it is important to know that these are times when Africa must stand its grounds from the strategic point of view. The United States, to an extent, has demonstrated that it's not a reliable partner geopolitically, and the United States has shown that to Europe. Expelling an ambassador for coming out clear to speak on issues, irrespective of what your stand is on this particular ambassador's comment, we've seen that it's not the first time. The United States does have ambassadors across the continent of Africa who often come out and criticize African governments in terms of their particular position in things. I'm not saying that some governments in the continent of Africa is taking some different position, contradictory position on their own particular policy. That is not the point here. What I'm saying is that the U.S. ambassador across sub-Saharan Africa has come out clear to criticize governments in the continent of Africa over and over. And we've never seen any U.S. ambassador being expelled from the continent of Africa as a result of their comments, irrespective of if they were talking on issues that were good for the good of the citizens or the good of the people. However, if this is going to be the barometer, the measuring rod, that an ambassador cannot even talk, there's not going to be any freedom in the next 4 years, then it's a wake-up sign for African countries to understand, despite what you think about other countries across the world, in the European Union, they have not said that the African ambassadors, despite their differences, should pack and leave. So the United States, to an extent, is demonstrating immaturity in regards to this relationship, and that is shameful in terms of the geopolitical engagement. Look, let's go back to some facts here to look at what's actually happened. If you look how the South African government has absorbed the shock that the United States of America has brought upon them in several areas. These are vital times in the continent of Africa's history. Why am I saying that? The United States of America's Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, came out clear and said that the United States of America sees that South Africa is doing some bad things in the country. Marco Rubio refused to attend the G20 of Foreign Ministers meeting hosted by South Africa. And the President of the United States of America, Mr. Donald Trump, has also accused South Africa to an extent talking about land expropriation. We all have seen how South African officials and media come out and debunk with regards to that particular accusation. It is important to note that with regards to social media, we all can follow events on how they happen and how things are going on. And South Africa also has gotten to the point, to an extent in terms of their relationship with the United States, that they would have expelled U.S. ambassadors, but they never done that. Let's go back to some facts. If the United States accused South Africa of land expropriation, wasn't that enough to to an extent, considering what the United States of America is reacting here, that the South African government will say that the United States American ambassador should leave if the United States of America interfere into the internal issues of South Africa, where the governments, we think that South Africa has its own challenges, but the country is trying to put things together to figure out how the country can live in peace to an extent, because this is what Africa needs. African countries need peace and stability at this time. Now, with a foreign government coming out and accusing, mentioning words that will sow division in the country of South Africa. Before the President of the United States came to power, this problem was being in South Africa already. African countries have had their problems. But does that mean that South Africans did not understand each other? They understood themselves. They were working on these issues to see how it could be resolved in a positive way, to come out to some conclusion that it will be amicable. However, if it had been escalated in the international scene, being discussed on social media, talking about what South Africans refer to as or megaphone diplomacy, it's difficult to actually have a proper conversation. I think if you go back to looking at the Simon Town, when the United States of America accused South Africa at the time for exporting cheap weapons to the country of Russia, was that not enough for the South African government to expel the ambassador at the time, Simon Brickley? We saw how that happened. He was convocated by the former South African foreign minister and a conversation was had. He was never expelled. The United States of America has threatened South Africa to take South Africa out from AGOA. Over and over, South Africa showed leadership and maturity. The United States of America, to an extent, has come out clear and cut out aid support to the country of South Africa and a number of countries from around the world. South Africa still showed maturity and stayed calm. South Africa said it would not explain itself to the government of the United States. The current administration in the United States is not properly structured at the moment based on media reports. There are positions that need to be filled in the government of the United States at the moment. And this government of South Africa have said, I come out clear, these are facts that are out there. They want to talk to the proper channels in the country of the United States. At the moment, they do not feel that these particular officials that they need to address, to talk to, that represent the U.S. government, are not in their particular position. So rushing, sending people to the country of the United States for just mere sending them to go and talk, that's just basically going there to explain yourself. The government have said they're not going to express themselves in terms of in an explanatory manner. They are going to say it how it is. This is not going to end anytime soon, like I said. So it's important to understand that this megaphone diplomacy that we see all over the place on Twitter, talking about things that can be addressed behind the scene, it is an important area in the continent of Africa to know that the landscape has changed. Geopolitics has consequences and election has consequences. And we've seen how that is playing out. South Africa has demonstrated leadership with regards to this relationship. They've done that over and over. South Africa have been dragged, have been pushed. Looking at the Russian-Ukrainian war, all of those accusations. Do you think that this government of South Africa was not thinking to an extent that the United States American ambassador can be expelled? The South African government has shown leadership here. They are calm. They want to figure out how to approach the United States of America. And if an ambassador who is the mouthpiece of a government in a foreign country cannot speak freely or say what they feel, that we've seen U.S. ambassadors across the continent of Africa said really terrible things than what we've heard. I think that the United States has the right to make a decision of its own to expel whoever be in their own territory, but I think it goes beyond this. South Africa has come under enormous pressure with regards to taking the country of Israel to the ICC with regards to the particular decision on what's going on. South Africa's own position in terms of standing alongside what's happening between Palestinian and also the country of Israel. Irrespective of your position in regards to South Africa's foreign policy, it is important to know that every country just have their own position. There are countries that decided to keep quiet, it's still a position. There are some countries that choose to take initiative, it's still a position. So this behavior from the United States that we all are seeing, I wonder where it's going to go. So it's important for the continent of African nations and governments to see that cutting of aid is not just the only step. There are more to come. The next 4 years will be rough. It's important to know that when we have topics like this, we talk about issues like this, the channels also, you never know how channels can be suspended at any time. But it's important because here we talk only geopolitics on how Africa engages a strategic partner. The behavior of the United States of expelling an African ambassador as a result of just coming out there talking on issues which it's all over the place in the US media. It is important to know that ambassadors too can speak. Doesn't mean that African ambassadors, the United States, cannot talk. They cannot make comment anymore. This is really fundamentally a situation where the continent of Africa must revise its relationship with the United States of America. They should have certain positions. It's important to know that the US has gone a long way to cut aid. That helps a number of African nations in several ways. Like the Ghanaian president said, Africa must adjust its budget, must make certain cuts in certain areas to withstand this challenging time in their history. The European Union, to an extent, is re-strategizing itself and refocusing, looking at Africa. Recently, we saw the president of the European Union moving to South Africa to engage. She openly said, van der Leyen, that if others are withdrawing, we're going to engage Africa. I've always said that Africa is the most important and strategic continent in the world. Africa does have minerals that are relevant to grow the global economy. To grow the global economy. The continent of Africa does have that. African countries do not have the know-how to an extent. However, like the Chinese Foreign Minister, Mr. Wang Yi, said, there will be no advancement or development or growth in the continent of Africa or globally without taking the continent of Africa alongside. So this intimidation tactics that we see from the United States of America is an opportunity or a way to silence the country of South Africa, because across the continent of Africa, no particular government has stood up to the United States of America in the past decades to also call the U.S. to order. It's South Africa that has done this over and over. South Africa has demonstrated that they are, to an extent, have a certain principle, not just a non-aligned. They have their own foreign policy. South Africa's colonial experience has formidable impact in terms of their upbringing, their development, irrespective of what you think. It's an African nation. They have their own position. They know where they stand. This is a major country in the global south. They understand what they are doing. So all this picking, bagging that an ambassador make the comment the U.S. is going to be leaving, it's fine. There are countries that have operated for years without ambassadors. So it's important for African ambassadors who are in the United States of America to understand that this particular decision is a wake-up call to them, that you cannot speak, you cannot make any comment, you can't say anything against the United States of America government. Even it is about saying that what you are doing in regards to your approach is not correct. So they are basically shutting the mouth of African ambassadors, intimidating them because they cannot speak. What is geopolitics? What is partnership? What is integration? What is collaboration? The United States is behaving towards South Africa as if there is no money involved. These two countries, like I've said, made billions of US dollars in terms of trade. South Africa is one of the largest importer of United States of American products to its country. In sub-Saharan Africa, South Africa is a member of BRICS. South Africa rubs shoulders with China, Russia, other countries, India, including other very important countries like Brazil and major economies. South Africa, to an extent, is the first country that a number of foreign companies in the continent of Africa will step into. And this particular thing of expelling an ambassador as if it's a big news in the media, it's nothing. It goes beyond what you see in the global media. It's a vital time for the continent of Africa to revise its policy, its negotiation strategy, working together with geopolitical partners that can provide other opportunities, that can shape the continent in several ways, to give Africa and a breathing room to foresee its own openings, what is relevant and what is not relevant, what partners bring benefit and those that do not. It's going to be chaotic in the next 4 years. So Africa should brace for impact. It's important that the decision by the United States of America to expel South Africa's ambassador is not a new thing. It's nothing to write home about. This diplomatic row, I think it's something where South Africa has said, we're not going to move, we're not going to shake, we're going to deal with our internal issue. South Africa has been pushed in the past 4 years by the U.S. administrations, and it's important to know that South Africa does have positions. Does it mean that the countries cannot? Look at what happened during the Russian-Ukrainian war. In the United Nations, South Africans came under enormous pressure. African countries like Eritrea, a whole lot of other nations across the continent voted in a way that was not to an understanding based on media reports and diplomatic conversation, was not in what they believed in. And the current administration has aligned himself with the country of Russia at the moment. Make no mistake, Russia is a true friend also of a number of African countries, because the position that Russia took during the independence period is completely different from what the United States at the time took. So these countries have a long-standing relationship. So by the United States of America's administration at the moment going closer to Russia does not mean that African countries are going to forget their particular relationship with the country of Russia. So expelling an ambassador, we've seen Britain expel Russian ambassador. We've seen Russia recall its ambassador in the UK. The United States has done that. European countries have done that. So it is not new. So what is new here is that African ambassadors in this administration cannot even make communication, cannot even talk in the United States anymore. That's the simple message they are sending to you. You cannot even talk about this particular administration. So if you talk, you will be booted out of the United States of America, because the comments made by the South African ambassador go into context. Look at what the U.S. media is reporting, what they are talking about. The U.S.'s administration to the moment is basically singling out these countries that have bigger voice in the global South. If you look at South Africa in particular, if you look at the current relationship with China, the current relationship with Russia, it seems cozy at the moment, but the truth will come out. So it's important that Europe has understood that the United States is not as strategic a partner as it is. So other African countries are observing this particular behavior, megaphone diplomacy, as we see in the continent of Africa at the moment, how African countries are being treated. It's important to note that the ambassador, Mr. Rasool, that's going to be leaving the United States of America, is nothing new. Nothing is going to change. The continent of Africa will reorganize and will move forward. And South Africa is bearing that brunt at the moment. The African Growth and Opportunity Act is a very important area where the United States of America has also to an extent threatened South Africa in taking them out from it as a result of its position. Was that not enough to call the ambassador out? All of these issues, I think that it indicates that the United States shows immaturity in terms of its foreign policy, and this is where the problem is. The Europeans must be laughing at the United States at the moment and other countries, because it means ambassadors cannot talk. So if a country is basically coming out making statements that have no particular or holding any grounds and interfering into African affairs and talking on issues which makes no sense, it sends a wrong message to the global community that to an extent US's ambassadors in the continent of Africa too cannot talk on those particular issues. So these are mixed signals that the United States of America is sending. Hopefully the United States of America will come to the realization that decisions like this, they have the right to do whatever they want to do. But again, it sends the wrong message across the continent of Africa and the African diplomatic circle that it's about time that this relationship is not going to work, and this only plays into the hands of China more and more. And China will exert leadership and will step forward and make sure that it builds a stronger relationship across the continent of Africa. Let me know in the comment section what you think regards to this particular decision and why the continent of Africa must stand strong and look at South Africa as a leader in terms of this next 4 years, this geopolitical spat that we all are seeing. I will be looking forward to meeting you soon in our next episode. Have a good day. Bye-bye.